And we are now recording. So glad we have that slide because I always forget. Okay, I'd like to just quickly introduce your CTPD State Support Team consultants. In Region 1, we have Lisa Height. Region 2, Matt Marino. Yours truly, Bob Ross in Region 3. Dr. Crystal Brisky is your CTPD consultant in Region 4. Jody Glazer, Region 5, Dr. Ray Blevins in Region 6. Julie Frankel, Region 7. Dr. Stacia Kashuk is your consultant in Region 8. Carol Swig is your consultant in Region 9. Carrie Hunter, Region 10. Radisha Young-Willingham is your Region 11 CTPD consultant. Cindy Miller, Region 12. Melissa Salazzo is Region 13. Forrest Kuhn, Region 14 and 15. And finally, last but not least, Beth Duffy is your Region 16 CTPD consultant. And we are really, again, excited to have you here. And especially since our team has grown this year, we are really enjoying time working together. So let's get started. We also have from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, and I wish they would have put the word development at the end so we could say dude, but they left that one off. So we have Amy Zemansky from the Office for Exceptional Children, Chelsea Canterbury, Office of Career Tech Education. Carrie Calzo is the Ohio Transition Support Partnership Project Coordinator, and Brenna Bartlett, is from the Office of Career Tech. Okay, we are going to kick things off with the graduation decision-making tool, which will be presented to us by Amy Zemansky. I am going to stop my share here because Amy, I know you want to take over from here, right?
I do. Thanks, Bob. And I will call you a dude, so you can.
Thank you.
We'll make sure you can keep that name. So good morning, everyone. As Bob mentioned, my name's Amy Szymanski, and I am really happy to be here today to show you our students with IEP's graduation decision-making tool. Oops, I'm gonna start sharing my screen here.
Get on.
You can access the document at the link that is going to be dropped into the chat. It is on our Office of Graduate Success, Students with IEPs, and Graduation Requirements webpage. There is also a video that is on that page, and I highly recommend that you take a look at it. While I will go through the tool with you now, it's just a really nice refresher. It's very well done. Thank you to our team at Ocali for creating that, and also for Lindsay Havey and Wendy Lewis in the Office for Exceptional Children's Urban Support Team for providing the voiceover and the slide deck. So all of that being said, the tool is several pages. The first page gives you an overview of essentially how the tool came to be, the purpose of using the tool, and when to use the tool. So I will not read all of this to you. That will also be covered in the video. However, I think it's really important for you to know that the purpose here is to help IEP teams determine if a student with an IEP has met or will meet graduation requirements following a typical pathway. It will also help you determine when a student with an IEP should be considering exiting secondary school, so exiting high school. I get many questions regarding how will we know if it's time for a student with an IEP to exit school? How will we know if they need to continue in school after they've met graduation requirements? When do they need to exit? All of those questions, I'm sure you've had those as well. And this tool is really set to help with that particular piece. I will remind you, and we'll dig through this very deeply once we get to the tool itself. When we talk about how we know whether or not a student is on track to meet a regular diploma, we want to remind everyone that all students have access to a regular diploma in Ohio. There is only one diploma in Ohio. So students with IEPs and typical peers can earn a regular diploma. Students with IEPs also have three options that IEP teams can consider to assist the student in meeting graduation requirements. If any of those three options are utilized, we as a state cannot count that student as having met a regular diploma. What that means for the student is they will still receive a diploma if they meet the graduation requirements that you find on, the Ohio graduation requirements webpage. They will still earn a diploma. It will look like the same diploma as their typical peers. It will not have any specific, extra notes on it. Their transcript will not look any differently. However, again, we cannot count them as a department for special education reporting through the State Performance Plan Annual Performance Report Indicator 1, which measures the percent of students with IEPs who graduate with a regular diploma. This is shown on your school district. So if you are a joint vocational school or a compact, on the school district of residence, the partner schools special education profile under indicator 1, and they would be given a not met if they don't reach a specific target of students who must meet those regular graduation requirements. There is not an impact to date right now on the local report cards for your school districts. However, that discussion has been taking place for several years as to whether or not we will consider that regular graduation requirement factoring into the local report card. ESSA has determined the definition for a regular report card. So essentially, this is nothing that is special ed driven. It is an ESSA and Every Student Succeeds Act, Every Student Succeeds Act requirement for all states to consider. So you can see here on the screen the three options that students with IEPs may use. One is to use the IEP goals to meet curricular requirements. So if you think about the graduation requirements in Ohio, remember we have kind of three buckets. We have the course requirements, we have competency, and we have readiness. IEP teams may determine in very unique situations that a student will use their IEP goals instead of earning the required credits for the course component of the credit component of graduation. Students also, if they utilize the alternate assessment decision-making tool and are found to be eligible candidates, they may participate in the alternate assessment for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. And also, students with IEPs may, if the IEP team determines, be exempt from earning the required scores on the, you can see here, the Algebra 1, Integrated Math 1, end of course exam, the English Language Arts 2, end of course exam, or the English Language Arts and Math alternate assessments for the competency requirements. They still would need to participate in the assessment, not earn the required score, receive remediation and retake, and then after retaking the test, they may either have an excusal. The IEP team may decide that they'll use an excusal, or we can talk about the alternative demonstrations of competency at that point. So if the students use any of those options that I just shared, they are not following a typical pathway. They are not on track for a regular diploma. In Ohio, until a student with a disability earns a high school diploma by following that typical pathway, regular diploma, or they turn 22, they are still entitled to stay in high school and receive special ed and related services. So it's really important for us to remember. We've had situations through our a DOE settlement, which was a legal settlement with the Disability Rights Ohio that asked us to ensure that families are aware of this right. So essentially, if the student is not meeting a regular diploma pathway and or is not yet 22, they still have the right to stay in in school and receive special ed and related services. So wanted to give that overview because I think it's really important to kind of understand why we're here and the impacts of the decisions that are made. Um, I if there are questions in the chat, maybe Bob, do you want to stop me? And if there's something that would be good for the whole group and let me know what those are. It's kind of hard for me to share and read the chat at the same time with this my screen share.
Yeah, Amy, we're keeping an eye on the chat. No questions yet. So
Wonderful. Okay.
Amy,
So we could also go through the guiding legislation. I know sometimes it's helpful to
hey, Amy,
see. Oh, I'm sorry.
we do have one on idea boards.
Oh, okay.
If a student qualifies for alternate assessment and then earns 12 industry recognized credential points, what is the process to then count the student as a federal grad?
Right. So I will say that if I'm following this correctly, the student has taken the alternate assessment and now is working towards the one of the alternative demonstrations of competency, correct? Is that what I'm considering? So the
That's how
12
I
industry record right, okay, so the 12 industry recognized credentials alone would not um would not that's what I'm trying to say, would not meet the requirements for an alternative demonstration of competency. Would they also be following or receiving the, for example, the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal or the other components? They would need to have the full, does that make sense? They would need to have the meet the requirements for the alternative demonstration of competency in order for that to be utilized as a pathway towards regular graduation requirements. And that happens magically in EMIS. I cannot explain how that happens. They will look at what pathways are being utilized and use those that are meeting the regular graduation requirements. You would also make sure that you are marking that student as having met graduation requirements in EMIS as well. I would you'd have to ask EMIS, maybe submit an email to the EMIS help desk for specifics on how that's reported. I would be making it up if I told you. Anything else? All righty. So
Amy,
when do we use this tool? Is it
sorry, Amy.
required? That's sorry.
No. We're overlapping our sounds, I think. There's one more. It says, just to clarify, if a student participates in AA, the alternate assessment, they are counted in the federal numbers for SPP indicator 1.
They are counted. If they use the alternate assessment and are not participating in any of the alternate demonstrations of competency, so if they just are using the alternate assessment, they cannot be counted federally as a graduate with a regular diploma. They will be counted and if they graduate in 4 years in their 4-year cohort, but we can't count it as earning a regular diploma for federal reporting purposes for the special education profile state performance plan annual performance report. It does not yet impact the local report card. Does that answer the question? Any follow up there? Okay, so I'm going to move through this quickly because I know we have a lot of other great things for you to get through, but I want to make sure that you fully understand, especially the requirements here. So it is not a required document. Trust me, I would love to have it be a required document, but it's not. And actually, that's okay in the sense that we want to make sure that every IEP team is using their best judgment around these decisions. However, we highly, strongly recommend that you are using it at least annually and starting that work when the student turns 14, because we want to have it on everyone's radar as to whether or not that student is on track for a regular diploma. That has implications related to post-school outcomes. It's not just about reporting. I really want to emphasize that. This is not just a manner of saying we want to have a higher, regular graduation rate. Of course we do, but the real implication is we want to make sure our students have access to the highest level of rigor and the most opportunities that are going to ensure that they have success after they graduate. So that's really the reasoning behind it. So we start it when they're 14, so we can have those honest, open discussions with families and students, and everyone has a really solid awareness of what the path is for that child. Whenever the data supports a need, if you have a situation where you're trying to make those decisions or think about, what your next steps are, pull this out, walk through it. It really should help. I will tell you that even though it hadn't been released for a long time, I have been using the questions and comments and the process from this tool because it's been in process for a long, long time. Every time I answer a question that comes, to you. So there's nothing here that you haven't heard from me and others in our office before. And then finally, once the student meets graduation requirements, run through this again to see, are they meeting typical regular graduation requirements? And if not, what other options do they have? I'm seeing the chat continue to have numbers, so I'll just stop for a minute. Any questions? No? All right, so overview here real quickly. Anything in green is a question that the IEP team will consider. Okay. Anything in yellow is a yes response. Anything in blue is a no response. This is not a right or a wrong. This is just the answer to the question that the IEP team is answering. It's the factual response to the question. Okay. So we're not saying one is better than the other. We're just saying this is the path to follow. So the first question is, has the student met Ohio graduation requirements? What we mean there is, has the student met the course competency and readiness requirements? We're not getting into whether or not they've used one of the options for students with disabilities and the IEP team yet. This is just in general. Have they met the requirements? Yes or no? If they have, we're going to ask you to move down to the end of the next level of the table and determine if that is following a typical pathway, right? Because you want to determine if they are on track for a regular diploma, because that's when the entitlement to continuing education comes into play. So then you move down from there. If the student has not met Ohio graduation requirements, because remember, we're talking about this starting at age 14, right? So there's a possibility they have not. But again, this is to really encourage this conversation. So has the student met Ohio graduation requirements? No, they have not. If the student's under 22, we're going to say, you know what, they're staying in school. They haven't met graduation requirements yet. And we'll continue to talk about what the next steps are. If they have not met Ohio graduation requirements and they are 22, they have turned 22, right, up through their 21st birthday, 22 years old, and they haven't met those graduation requirements, they will have to exit school without a diploma. The only time that would happen is if they really truly have not met the graduation requirements. Even with the options, they still have not met graduation requirements. So we really hope that this is not a common practice. So let's follow through here a little bit. So as I already said, right, if the student's under 22, there may be this kind of, well, why would we keep talking? We know they haven't met graduation requirements, but we do really want you to continue that conversation just so that, again, there's an awareness of next steps for everyone. So this is when we get into the three areas, like I mentioned. So let me go back. Sorry for the scroll. I'm just going to refresh your memory. We're asking you if the student's already met graduation requirements or has not yet 22 and hasn't met graduation requirements. These are the considerations you have to have. You're going to look to determine, have they used those options that the IEP team has available for the student? So if we are marking yes to any of these, if they've used any of these options, all right, if they've answered yes to any of the options, they've met graduation requirements, they've used one of those options, the student is eligible for a diploma, but as we talked about before, they are not on track to earn a regular diploma. So they still would, at this point, be eligible for continued services. They have not met the graduation requirements for a typical diploma. But if they're 22, they need to exit. Does that make sense? They can stay in school until they're 22, or they meet the requirements for the regular diploma. Okay. If the student is not using any of these, right? So they've met graduation requirements, they didn't use any of those IEP options, the student's eligible for a diploma, and it's a regular diploma. Okay. However, something to keep in mind, keep following this arrow. That student's not 22 yet, right? So we're talking about if they're 22 or if they've met those regular graduation requirements. So at this point, it does become a discussion with the IEP team. It's not an automatic that because they met those graduation requirements that they're going to exit school. The IEP team still needs to talk about that student's progress on their IEP. These are the two questions, like I mentioned, that I will give to you every single time someone says, I'm not quite sure whether or not that student should exit. I'm going to ask you to consider two things. Number one, have they made progress on those IEP annual goals and objectives? And are we adequately addressing their identified needs? And this is a big and, have their transition services reasonably enabled them to move towards their post-secondary goals? If you can't answer yes to both of those as an IEP team, then we're going to have to continue to think about special education services, okay? That is a really, really big point. And that means everyone comes to the table with the data that they have available. We are talking about equitable access, equitable voice. So every person around the table has an equal voice in this discussion. Bring the data that supports and make that decision. It's a consensus, not a vote, okay? I'm going to scroll back just for a minute because I want to show you the next scenario though. Remember, this is a student who hasn't met they've met their graduation requirements, but they've used one of those options, right? So let's say, just for this example, let's say that they are using the alternate assessment and they're not 22 yet. They've met graduation requirements, but we have to have a discussion. This is super, super important, right? The parent and the student have to understand that the student still has a right to special ed and related services, right? Because they have not been on track for a regular diploma and they're not 22. And with this understanding, we ask the parent and the student, what do you think? Are you still going to continue to stay in school? Some of our kids are going to say, no, I met graduation requirements. I'm out of here. Others we know are going to have this consideration. They're going to think, you know what? Maybe we do. Let's talk more about it, right? So this is kind of the decision-making piece. Are we going to move forward or is the student going to exit? If they want to consider the student to graduate, the student will exit. If they don't, this is where we go down. That student can continue to receive special ed services, right? They can also do what we sometimes call a social graduation, where they will walk across the stage, but they don't take the diploma. And then they have an IEP that continues to address those needs. I get a lot of questions that says, hold on, what you're telling me then is that the parent and the student are kind of trumping the IEP team and they're saying, we want our student to continue. This is where a lot of discussion needs to be taking place. Is it in the best interest of the student, right, to stay in school? Are there still areas on the IEP that we need to be addressing? How are they doing on their annual goals? Are those transition services moving them towards their post-secondary goals? So it's going to be a discussion that you'll need to talk about very deeply to decide whether or not the student is going to stay in school. I just had a question yesterday about that, and it's really is a matter of an IEP team discussion and decision. And at that point, I'm seeing a lot of comments coming in, but I can't read them, so I'm going to stop and pause and see if there's anything I can ask or answer.
There have been some questions that we've been answering, I believe, adequately while you were going, but we do have one person, Lisa, says she has a question.
Yeah, it was too hard to type. So hi, Amy, how are you? So when the box that's on the screen right here, and like you said, this is a discussion. It's not that parents or students going to trump the IEP team. Can you go down a little bit lower? So I guess then it would be appropriate if a parent or a school or a outside agency or whatever is pushing for the student to stay, we could still ask maybe those two questions below, these two, right? And then that would help us that's where these two questions might help with that conversation, right? Like
exactly.
Okay. At first I thought the questions up above would have trumped this box, but the more you talked, we can use this box to help. Okay.
Right. Yeah, but I will also say that from just a general perspective, you are going to want to make sure as a school district that you have really good evidence to show that even though the student may have, especially when we're talking about a student who's, using the alternate assessment, for example, or their IEP goals as a substitution for their academic credits, it's going to be really hard to necessarily show that that student is, made the progress that they need, to move forward, simply because they haven't had the exposure to a lot of those typical types of opportunities, experiences. Doesn't mean that that automatically means they're staying in school. I don't want to say that, because there's no blanket statement, but I just want everyone to be really, really thoughtful about, what this means. Moving forward, we want to make sure, again, that our students are exiting with something that is going to provide them an opportunity after they leave. They're already matched up with their, with the adult services, and things look like it's going to be really smooth. And, they have those transition services and they're on track. Wonderful. If not, let's really, really talk about that. It doesn't mean also that they have to stay in school automatically until their 22nd birthday. Remember, we want to use this tool every year. So you're going to revisit this and say, now what do we think? Where are we going? Are we moving towards that? And in some cases, you might find some of these students have actually, completed some of those alternative competency demonstrations, for example, and maybe will be on track for a regular diploma. So, it really is going to be a continued discussion. Right. So if the student, has met graduation requirements, everybody says, yes, it's time to go. We've answered those questions, then they would exit school. Once the student accepts that diploma, I do want to really emphasize that has it in their hand, right? And leaves school, they are no longer eligible for special ed services. Now, if they're not 22, could they potentially return, asked to return to school? Yes. They're not, right? We've talked about this before, kind of more circumstantially, but they could, come back to the school district of residence and say, hey, I didn't earn a regular diploma. I've changed my mind. I want to. I'm not 22. The student still would be kind of under that purview of child fine for the school district. So they'd have to consider if they're going to accept the student back in and have them continue to be eligible. But honestly, I can't say we've seen this really ever materialize. And if it happens, give us a ring. We'll walk you through it. We'll talk about it. Alrighty. So this is the tool. It is available, like I said, on the website. I'm happy to continue to talk to you about it and think through the situations. It is not perfect in the sense that it's not going to answer every single question you have, but it's certainly going to give you some next steps. So I'll turn it over to whomever is the key takeaway person, and we will go from there.
Amy, can I ask you one more question? So this isn't a requirement, right? I mean, it's strongly recommended. I think the first message our district was getting that it was a requirement, but
well, so Lisa, if you are one of the 11 districts, I would talk with your urban support representative at the department, because there are some slightly different requirements since this is connected to the Doe settlement and the 11 district plan. So thank you for asking that question. There is a slightly different flavor to that if you are an 11 district.
Okay, everybody.
You want to take away? I'm having a hard time finding my toolbar now. So some weird thing going on here.
Okay. So everybody, we're going to head into our regional breakouts just for about 10 minutes. And we want to talk about these two questions that you see on the screen. One, and how do you plan to share this tool with your staff? High school and middle school. So Marcia put in the chat, this puts a heavier lift on the transition plan and services to be sure it has been developed and used with fidelity to support the post-secondary goals. So that middle school to high school continuum there, how are we sharing information with all of our staff members that are really involved in these transition plans and services to make sure that they are developed with fidelity, and we're looking at them every year and making sure our students get what they need. And then when do you plan to share this tool with students and families? So we know from past experience that a lot of people ditch out during breakouts, but we promise it's 10 minutes and we have some great content following. So please don't leave us. When I open the breakout rooms, you're going to see the state support team region and then your CTPD consultant name. So if you don't know for sure what region you're in, you're going to see our names to help you choose your room. And then, like I said, we'll be in there about 8-9 minutes, and then we'll come back to the next part of our program. Does anybody, do any of you have any questions before I open those breakout rooms? Okay, here we go.
Melissa, I'm not seeing where I can choose a breakout room to join my group.
Right, I'm not either.
Did I do it, bro?
Well, other people are joining, so maybe
You need to
because we're
scroll all the way
If
down.
you hit more, the 3 dots of more,
Oh.
it'll pop up with breakout rooms.
Oh, thank you. It's been a while since I've done that.
Excuse me, Ross is in 2, correct?
Ross?
Hello. Yes.
Bob Ross is in 3.
3. Okay.
Everybody's coming back.
Oh, Ellen, I'm such a rabble rouser.
Hey, Queta, you're unmuted.
Sorry.
And I agree, you are a rabble rouser for
You
sure.
know, I come naturally. It's my mother. My mother was that way too.
We had a good discussion in our room. Regions 3 and 4 were together. So hopefully you all had a good conversation as well. So,
Hey, Bob.
yes, Melissa.
Amy's still on, I think, correct?
I hope so, because she and Julie are up next.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, Amy, we had one point of clarification from our room we wanted to ask. When students receive their diploma and stop receiving IEP services, what, if any, is the process for the family to or the student to ask to receive those services again?
So if the student actually like accepts the diploma and withdraws from school,
Yeah.
yeah, they would.
When you mentioned it earlier, it seemed to indicate could they ask to get services? If they did, what's that process like?
Right. So they would have to re-enroll in school in the district, and then the IEP team would have, then they would have the child, I mean, again, this is kind of the general scenario. They'd re-enroll in school. The parent would say that they suspect that their child has a disability. This district would consider, whether the student did have an IEP. I'm sorry, did have a disability. They'd have the 30 days to respond whether or not they consider the student, to move forward for assessment. Like I said, the chances would be hard for the district to say that they don't suspect a disability because they know the student had a disability, right? So then the discussion would be, are we going to continue eligibility? And what would the IEP look like, et cetera? So I would say, again, it's going to be a really unique and individualized kind of a discussion if that in fact does happen. But the whole process would just start over with a re-enrollment.
Okay. Is there someone at the department, if that were to happen, that would help guide the district?
I would imagine they would probably send it to me.
Okay.
And then we would work on it, again, on an individualized basis.
Okay, great.
I would work with the Office of Graduate Success though too.
Okay.
Mhm.
I hope that answers the questions from my breakout room.
Any other questions before we move on here? Okay. So we will continue on here with a discussion about Each Child on Track, the State Systemic Improvement Plan, with Amy Zemansky and Julie Frankel. Amy, Julie, do you want me to drive?
Sure, that's great.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob. Next
Yeah,
slide, please.
Okay, just
That'd be awesome.
Okay.
All right, so this is the logo that you will see associated with Each Child on Track, which is right, the tag name, right, for the State Systemic Improvement Plan. Our intention for these next few minutes with you is that you're going to become aware of the school districts that are involved in the Each Child on Track State Systemic Improvement Plan, and that the career tech planning districts are going to have a better sense of how they can partner and support the work toward the work of the plan is increased graduation outcomes for shared students, specifically students with disabilities, but we do support all students. So next slide, please. I'd like to start out with a huge celebration and a gigantic thank you to Knox County Career Center. So last year, the teams that were part of cohort 1 were what I would call guinea pigs, right? So when you're piloting something and you're building the plane as you're flying, there's sometimes a sense of, do we know what our roles are, our responsibilities are, right? And we were trying to get that figured out. And so I just want to say thank you, because Knox County Career Center is very patient with our team that was piloting. And I had a meeting in the summer with Elaine Robinson, the director there. And we go way back, fortunately. So I said, hey, I'd really like a mulligan on this now that I know a lot more as a lead on this project. And Stacia and I were getting things figured out last year as to how we can best partner and ask for your support. And, can we have a mulligan? And she's like, absolutely. So she invited me down. I spent an afternoon there with her. I went through the specific parts of the rubric that kind of help the districts that are working through this get to a level of quality. And there are multiple places in there where the Career Tech Planning District can be so helpful and such an excellent partner in the work. And so she kind of went through with me who's on her staff and who would be maybe the best point of contact for that specific conversation in that part of the rubric. And then I met with them, and they've already started the work. So we've made like 3 or 4 moves on the rubric in regards to moving towards quality, simply because that partnership got strengthened. And so I just want to say thank you, because it's valuable work and it's going to really make a positive difference over time. So next slide, please.
CTC and Ross, pick away, Ross.
All right, so thank you for bringing the slide all the way up. As Julie said, we're really excited about this project. It is called Each Child on Track, and the Department of Education and Workforce is completing this project as it is a requirement, but it's also an exciting requirement as part of our state systemic improvement plan. Each year, the department needs to report on the progress towards meeting the indicators on our annual performance report, state performance plan. And as we've talked about before, our graduation rate of students with disabilities graduating with a regular diploma has not been so great. And our dropout for students with disabilities has also not been so great. As part of our plan, we've been asked to address those two areas. And we put together the Each Child on Track project. So it has been in place for about 2 years now. While it is a pilot, and Julie and Knox County and many here on this call have been a part of the first cohort year, it still is going to be moving forward for the next, let's see, till federal fiscal year 2025. So we have a few more years under our belt or on our way to finish this project. Basically, the project is looking at, I'm going to start counterclockwise. We're really trying to build our leadership in the districts to consider all students for regular graduation requirements. We know that if we have leadership on board, that means we have more of an opportunity for systemic change within our school districts. We're asking for diverse and comprehensive leadership teams at our district level, which means, of course, we want to make sure we're incorporating career technical education in that teaming structure. So some of you have already, we're going to mention your names here shortly, have been contacted through the Office of Career Technical Education and thanked for partnership in this work. Your partner school districts will be reaching out if they haven't already to discuss membership on their district leadership team, for example, to really help move this work forward. So the leadership aspect is really, really important, and we appreciate, again, your participation in this work. What will we be doing? We are using a multi-tiered system of support to identify students, all students in grades 9 through 12, who are off track for meeting graduation requirements. We are using attendance, course performance, and behavior indicators to determine those students who are at risk. And then we are utilizing a multi-tiered system of support to provide universal, targeted, and intensive interventions based on the identified need of these students. So we're using our district teams, our building teams, and our teacher-based teams to help us dig into the why. Why are these students at risk, not coming to school, failing classes, having behavioral incidents? What is the root cause? And how can we strategically place them in interventions while really streamlining our own process so that we aren't spending time in areas where we don't necessarily need to be. So, for example, we have, as Julie mentioned, our implementation rubric that includes many universal supports that can be put in place to keep our students from falling off track in the first place. So things that are very familiar to you, such as career advising policies, business advisory councils that include special education representation, the self-review tool that we're going to talk about a little bit more, utilizing that to get an idea of what is the access to special education for students with disabilities, just ensuring that we have a really solid foundation so that, again, we don't have students falling off track and then utilizing resources, to put them back on track when we really could just be keeping everyone on track in the first place. We also are going to be continuing to collaborate with our partner agencies, career technical centers, obviously, our business advisory councils, employers, et cetera, to ensure that we have a really comprehensive support system. We cannot do this alone, especially as we identify why our students are not on track. It's going to take a village, right, to bring the structures together to make the best impact. We will be building capacity of school personnel, and that can include regular education, special education, career technical education personnel in areas such as multi-tiered systems of support, mathematics, adolescent literacy, graduation plans. Gosh, I mean, there's a lot of different areas that we're providing professional development on support, additional coaching that your SSTs are going to be providing to the district based on identified needs. We've really found that mathematics has become, a really, really big need across the state. Many of our students, as you know, are challenged in the area of mathematics, and knowing that Algebra 1 is such a key component to graduation requirements, we're doing a lot at the state and regional levels to start building out mathematics supports. So we are learning from you. This is not an assessment of how all of you are doing as districts, as schools. It really is, how can we find those areas that we need to improve at the state, regional, and local levels to have the best impact for our students. And the last piece, and definitely not the least piece, that we are incorporating into this is our families. We are asking our districts to utilize school climate surveys with school personnel, with families, with students, to get an idea of how we can best support families in being involved in this work. We're doing our establishing families as partners in the secondary transition planning process training in year 2 of the project for our districts that are participating, to really ensure that we're thinking about the best way to include our families in this work. So really excited about this opportunity. We want to make sure that we are embracing all of our partners in this work. If you want to go on to the next slide, by doing all of this, of course, our impact, there should be 3 clicks, Bob, that we want to make sure that, again, more students with disabilities graduate with a diploma, fewer students with a disability are dropping out, and really most importantly, that we're putting those kids on a track for meaningful, self-sustaining vocations. So if we want to go on to the next slide. And I mentioned that we are moving through this through June 2026. Cohort 1 is underway. Cohort 2 is underway. We are recruiting for cohort 3. We are not against having career technical centers being involved in this. So I want you to really think about, what does that mean for you, right? Whether a JBSD, a compact, a comprehensive, think about if this is something that you want to consider. Educational service centers, we're talking about how we can start incorporating them into some of this work. We want this to be big. Cohort 4 will start in winter 2025. And then, of course, we'll have cohort 5 kind of wrapping things up. Hopefully this will be sustainable and we will be spreading this district, state wide. However, we're just getting started. So learning a lot, as Julie mentioned. Next slide, please. So Julie, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to talk about who's currently involved. And I think you're going to see a lot of names that you recognize. So Julie, back to you.
Yeah, we just wanted to give everybody a little bit of sense of where in the state this work is happening. And where you might be able to ask and network. So next slide, please. Cohort 1, which is in year 2 now, included CTPD's Lakeshore Compact, Auburn Career Center, Knox County Career Center, R.G. Drake Career Technical Center, Warren County Career Center, and Scioto County Career Center. So they all have been, like the early adopter partners, and kind of felt some of the growing pains, and we're learning a lot with and from them. So thank you to all of those places for anything that you've done so far, and in advance for the things that you are going to do to help make this project successful as possible for the students. Next slide, please. Kind of more than doubled the participation from year 1 to year 2. So in cohort 2, as you can see, we have a lot more folks. So thank you currently and in advance to Whitmer Career Tech Center, Lorain County JVS, Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, Auburn Career Center, East Liverpool. They're going to be having some more partners. Ohio High Point Career Centers, the 6th District Compact. Next slide, please. Eastland Fairfield, Mideast Career and Technology Center, Butler Tech, right? Scarlet Oaks, Winton Woods City, Laurel Oaks, Pike Career Tech Center, and Meigs Local. Also, of course, a huge thanks to those districts who work with, who are the partner districts with these CTPDs, who have tossed their hats in the ring to help the state move forward with these graduation efforts for our students with disabilities. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. So we're going to kind of tag team this piece. I know, Julie, you've been so instrumental in bringing the Career Tech Center. Well, of course, Knox has been really super helpful too. To really bring this conversation, to fruition, this collaboration. There are some really, really great partnership opportunities that are available. And these are just a few. But Julie, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more, if there's anything else you want to mention with team participation.
Well, we're trying to be as creative as possible so that the career tech partners feel like partners, but also are able to meet the demands of their own schedules and their own individual job roles and responsibilities. So we've been doing some small group work where representatives of the larger team, like work collaboratively, then some partnering. Both entities are doing some partnering with like the Business Advisory Council and the Workforce Development team, are bringing individuals in for very specific pieces. So, like, there's always a way, right? There's always a way, and it's really been heartwarming that everybody wants to improve the outcomes for students. So, the rubric itself has been helpful too, right? Because the rubric gives us a bar on which we can hold ourselves accountable, and we can try to make things in chewable bites, right? Like, so if you understand that you're not trying to solve all the problems and get to quality in a month, right? You can take years if you need it, and just intentionally do chewable bites and take steps forward.
Exactly. And it's going to be really individualized too, right? So the participation is going to depend on how you are currently, working with your districts, and it's okay, right? In some places we're going to be moving faster, and others we're going to be taking different chunks, like you said, and it's really going to be based on what your district and your partnership needs to move forward. There is, as I mentioned,
I want to send a thank you to there on live to Stacia, because Stacia was the CTPD consultant in our region last year before the split and the multiply. And she got a lot of this work going and the conversations going with the career tech teachers, even in the district. So thanks, Stacia.
Yeah, awesome. So, you can see the other opportunities for collaboration here. I mentioned before, the Students with Disabilities and Career Tech Self-Review Tool is something that is part of the requirements of this work. So definitely will appreciate your partnership in that. The data that you see, like we mentioned, you're going to be we'll be looking at those early warning data for attendance, course performance, and behavior, and the districts that are participating don't have access immediately to the Career Tech Center data for the students that are attending that are part of their school and attending the Career Center. So we do appreciate, I know many of you have been helpful with sharing these data. We're going to continue to figure out ways to best support you all in this work, because we know it's an integral component, but it really does just set such a good stage for collaboration and gives us a really good picture of how all of the students within that district residents are performing. So thank you again for that. And Julie, and I think, the other big piece here is that just that collaboration for the interventions. I don't know if you have anything you want to mention there.
So there's been some real turnaround in the conversations about, at the beginning, that the school district partner was so anxious to get going and get it done, and what they've learned over the time about building their system. And they're just really wanting, right, something that's going to be sustained, and they want the interventions to be intentional, and right, they want it to be part of how they're going to learn to do business. And so the sense of urgency has kind of been replaced by a sense of intention, and the teacher leader members and the administrators have said out loud, right, that they now see the value in this work and the possibilities that are ahead of them, and they're excited now about aligning intentional interventions for the kiddos based on the needs that they have identified in their data.
So, yeah. And clearly something that can be, extrapolated into the students who are also attending that Career Center, right? I mean, there's a lot to be learned, and a lot of methods for, collaborating those supports.
Well, and the other thing that is different with this particular state plan and project is the different areas of expertise and right accountability that are all working together. So it's losing the sense of all these different islands working on their own separate initiatives and not coming together and working collectively as a whole. And this project it's not just focused on one thing, but the partners who are in the work get to choose the priorities, right? They get to choose the order, right, and the intention of how they're going to get there. And so there's this sense of right autonomy and ownership, but there's also this sense of it takes a lot of expertise and a lot of team members to make this right. And that's I've been part of a lot of state projects over the last decade, and that's what I really like about this one.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. Yeah. So, like I said, cohort 3 is coming soon. If you are interested, please contact the Each Child on Track mailbox. We look at that every single day, and we are excited to partner with you and learn with and from you. So, thank you so very much. Appreciate your time, and go Each Child on Track. Thanks, Julie. Great work.
So just a bit of reflection for you too is how can you support the partner schools involved in the ESSEP project or Each Child on Track project? And then what early warning indicators are you utilizing right now to proactively assist students who are off track? So you might have some at the middle school, you might have some at the high school, you might not have any, but did this overview of the ESSEP project give you some ideas about how you could start using some? So we're going to segue into just a refresher on some career pathways information for how to plan for things to and through high school graduation.
Melissa, before we move forward, there is at least one question that was put in chat and on the idea board. So I want to make sure that we touch base on that question. So the question is, can someone provide guidance on how to best document a student using the IEP goals to meet curricular requirements? So I think that goes back to our decision framework that Amy shared first. And so the question is, can someone provide guidance on how to best document a student using the IEP goals to meet curricular requirements?
Mm-hmm. Essentially, this would be something that you would be summarizing within a variety of different locations on the IEP. There's not necessarily one specific spot or way in which to do that. I would be making sure that it is really clear in the age-appropriate transition assessment component that the student is using the IEP goals. I'd also be making sure that it's somewhere maybe in the other section. I will also say that it is really an option for a very limited number of students. I would never try to act in place of an IEP team, but there should be very few situations in which a student is using those IEP goals. We are working really closely with our County Board of DD schools, for example, to make sure that the information, that the courses that they are using within their schools are aligned to credits, are able to be credit, what's the word I want to say? The kids can earn credits using those. So again, this is a really unique situation. So document that on the IEP, but again, keep in mind that we would need to see an extensive amount of modification, an extensive amount of students who are unable to, participate in typical experiences, transition services are not, are exceptionally challenging in that piece. Just want to really reiterate that is a very unique circumstance.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy. All right, so career pathways to and through high school graduation. If you have heard Graham Wood from the Office of Graduate Success speak about graduation, he's always talking about how the most recent graduation requirements that we've been living with for a couple years now are all about planning for graduation and for what that next step is for that student. So that's where we get that to and through information. So forgive me just a minute. A couple of these slides are review. If you haven't seen them though, Bob, do you want to go ahead? So again, to graduate in the state of Ohio, you have to meet requirements in all three of these areas. And a lot of times you'll hear us refer to them as buckets. So the first one is course requirements, where you get your credits. The second one is your demonstration of competency. And the third one is your demonstration of readiness. We often jump to this competency alternative for career readiness in our world because students that are not passing their end of course assessments for Algebra 1 and ELA 2 after the second attempt with tutoring and additional instruction normally land here because College Credit Plus might not be a worthwhile option, or remediation-free ACT, SAT, and then military enlistment. We know some students are going to follow the military path, but the majority of our students are going to land here to demonstrate their competency. So when you see those yellow boxes, we often work with our schools to find 12 points of industry recognized credentials that will also then earn them that industry recognized credential seal, which will help to demonstrate their readiness, that third bucket. And then they'll also be able to earn, if they earn from the supporting column there, the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, they'll earn the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, which would give them their second seal for demonstrating readiness. So this, we work with this option an awful lot because it ticks two of those buckets. It helps you demonstrate competency and demonstrate readiness. So this mixed with your credits would get you to the high school diploma. Recently, Graham Wood talked with us at our OCTA meeting, which is the Ohio Career Technical Administrators, a division of Ohio ACTE, talked about how when we look at our pathways to graduation, right now, we're seeing that student interest be one bubble, the community or regional need be another bubble, and then reliably achievable options can be another bubble. And when you think about reliably achievable options, a lot of times, and I don't mean to offend anyone, we're resorting to using FEMA NIMS because students can get a lot of graduation or industry recognized credential points, and it's free. And we're also relying a lot on Rise Up, which Rise Up has some really good skills for students to learn, but do those skills align with that student interest? And so we're hoping that as we continue to work on building these pathways, Bob, will you go to the next one? That we're going to start seeing them overlap. So when we see our students' interests and we look at our regional need and community need to keep our students working in the state of Ohio, then we'll look at those options for credentials and what would work best for them, what helps them get that job in their community. So if you're not in the path of public safety, having that FEMA NIMS certification, you have to ask yourself, what is that student really going to be able to do the day after graduation if they have those FEMA NIMS credentials? Then go to the next one. And then we're hopeful in a couple years as we build out these pathways and work with our business advisory councils and really beef up our career advising activities that there'll be one, right? Our student needs, their options for credentialing, and the workforce and community needs will be totally overlapping. So we're really helping students find that to and through graduation piece. So a lot of you have been asking for a couple examples of things. So we'll go to that in just a second. Bob, will you go to the next one? Thanks. So some big questions to think about. how and when are you identifying students that will need alternative pathways? We hear a lot of we're going to wait till they're a senior to see if they pass their end of course assessments. But being a senior might not give them enough time to really go through a credentialing option and be ready for that next step. And remember, after the student has taken their end of course assessments for Algebra 1 and ELA 2 that second time, after you've provided extra resources and tutoring and instruction, if they haven't passed the second time, there's no need to test them again, because it's not going to impact your graduation score or your end of course assessment score on your report card. The student, if they're not successful that for the first and second time, it might do them more harm to keep testing them when you could be building a parallel pathway for those students as they enter high school. From 8th grade what students are coming to you and where they've struggled by looking at their data. So you can almost begin planning that parallel pathway when they're freshmen. And you can be working on implementing some credentials freshman and sophomore year for all of your students. And then the students that really need to move to the alternative pathways, they've already got some points under their belt. And you can really focus in on that student interest and what will give them their leg up in that next step. And then how are you currently planning to support students at risk of not graduating? So are you implementing those success plans? Are you working on the graduation plan? Are you meeting with families? What kinds of creative things are you doing to help support them with integrated credit or flex credit, simultaneous credit, those things? You can go to the next one, Bob. So you hear us talk about this a lot, but we do have the Serving Students with Disabilities self-review tool. And one of the sections is the provision of special ed services. So we would love to work with you to help you find those meaningful outcomes for your students, to help you build those parallel pathways, because some of your students that don't have disabilities are going to need those as well. We really want to focus on those students' PINs, their preferences, interests, needs, and strengths. And so just some questions for you to think about. So how do you determine which credentials are available to students? Lots goes into that, right? What can your teachers provide? What kind of training is available for teachers to provide credentialing? Do you have summer camps? Do you utilize time in May after your end of course assessment testing is finished? What kinds of things are you doing? And if your organization is focusing on free credentials right now, how do those credentials really fit into the students' future plans? Will the students be employable in your community with those credentials provided? So just thinking about this, of course, my mind went to the bowling pins for thinking of pins. But if we're not planning with purpose and we're not really thinking about that student and their individual needs, we're not going to knock all the pins down. We're only going to get a few here and there. But if we go, Bob, if you click the next one, if we go and we really use those pins while we're thinking about their graduation planning, we're going to get a strikeout, right? We're going to hit them all. And that student's going to be much more successful and be prepared for what's coming next. And the next one, Bob. This is where I started to say a second ago. Some of you have been asking for like some sample credential bundles that would work for students. And so in all fairness, we look at these with I'm thinking of the company. It's called Envision Ed Plus, and they created what a few years ago what they called a doable credential list, and it's credentials that allow for some accommodations that, with some support, students could be successful in those credentials. So as I go through a couple of these sample bundles here in a minute, if they're in blue, that means that credential is in every career field. So you could mix and match some of these. But I do want to give you one caveat. Bob, will you click one more time? Please, please, please double check the list on ODE's website. I take what's there and put it here, but if I transcribe something or miss a number, I just want you to please double check all the time to make sure you have the most up-to-date information with the list on ODE's website. Or the department, sorry, it's going to take me a while to stop saying that. Here's a sample credential bundle that would work for all career fields. And a lot of you are probably utilizing these right now, where you use the Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt, Green Belt, and the Student Leadership Excellence. Those equal 12 points. These do cost money, but they're pretty cost effective once you get your teachers trained. You can embed some of these into courses you already have in place. Student Leadership Excellence and Yellow Belt, I think, could easily be embedded into a number of courses you have. Green Belt would take a little more creativity, but the students do plan and implement a project. So wherever you feel a course could utilize projects, that could be implemented in that course. Go next. A sample pathway for hospitality could be the first Rise Up, which is industry foundations. Then the Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt, which is learning how to be a good team member. And then Leadership Excellence again, which is a total of 12 points. Sample pathway for business or IT could be Leadership Excellence. And I just put the little dollar sign there because that one does cost some money. Or Student Lead for Change, which is free. And both of those are 3 points. So you could even use both of those. They're not the same thing. You could also use Certiport, Entrepreneurship and Small Business. And then Google AdWords and Google Analytics are both 3 points, and those are free credentials. So if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to share some ideas about how you're implementing those meaningful industry recognized credentials. You're also welcome to ask questions about credentials. We're happy to do a little legwork for you if you're looking for information about one. Or if you just want some more assistance with this, put your name in the chat or on the idea boards, and your CTPD consultant will reach out to you with that. And so, Bob, I think we'll give them a few seconds to think about that. And I'd love if anybody has a question to go ahead and unmute, and we'll try and field that.
Melissa, I was just going to add, when you were talking about leadership excellence, I know that one way for schools to be able to offer that credential is by getting their teachers trained. I wanted to share that an organization named Embold also has an online platform where students can complete a variety of modules to receive the credential, the Student Leadership Excellence. I actually got a Sandbox account last year and went through and did it myself. It can be scaffold, it can be paced. It's affordable. It's $50 per student, and I would just encourage people to check out Embold, and we can maybe share that out with everyone as well. Find that and put it in the chat.
I don't know if anyone saw my question earlier. It was when we were talking about the credentials, you mentioned something right before you talked about Rise Up. You said something else that your students were using, and I missed what you said.
Was it Lead for Change?
No.
I think he's talking about NIMS.
Oh, okay.
So,
thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Terry.
Melissa, I was just looking at for idea boards and leadership excellence, rise up, green and yellow belts.
Yes. So I see the one about, does the Lean Sigma 6 require a train the trainer component? It does. So it depends on which, this is one of those credentials, the green belt, yellow belt, that have multiple providers throughout the state of Ohio. The one I'm most familiar with, the teachers come for training, and then once those teachers have finished the training, and if they're going to do green belt, they've completed a green belt project themselves, they're able to offer those credentials to their students. And then the district pays a fee to the company for all the curricular material and the certificates, the fee for getting all those together. So some providers of Lean Six Sigma might not offer a train the trainer component. They might just say, we have to be the provider. So when you're researching those, you just have to ask those questions. And again, if you need any help with what questions to ask or providers in your area that we're aware of, just reach out to your CTPD consultant, and we'll help you with that.
Well, Melissa, this is Jody. I'm looking at the ideas board, and I'm curious who's using the elder care. I'm very curious how that's working and with what population you're potentially using that with. If somebody be willing to share out, that would be great.
Actually, I'm going to ask Ed Delaire, who's on here, if he would explain it, because he's actually the instructor that supported the students. But we have a JTC program, and last year through we have in one of our buildings health pathway, and they did the elder care and received, I believe, 3 points. But Ed can comment more on that if he's still on.
Yeah. So yeah, we did the elder care with like a self-contained multiple disability classroom, and it was a lot of it focused on like customer service and just kind of good people skills. They did have to interview an elderly person at the end and kind of write like a little summary of what that was like, and kind of the physical decline that person's experienced. And the students really got engaged in that final project, and they really liked it. So I did like the program, but I know there's a cost with it. But I do think it's a quality program.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, because I know that, nursing homes and, patient care places are very much looking for some of those folks. And so it's in demand. I was just kind of wondering how it was working for you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to move on, Melissa.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is something that I'm excited about. I wanted just to share with people. Direct service professionals are individuals that support persons with disabilities, either in living, in community, in employment. I actually started out my career as a direct service professional while I was attending university. There is a huge, huge demand for direct service professionals to support individuals with disabilities in the community. There is a bill that has been introduced called the Recognizing the Role of Direct Service Professionals Act. In the Senate, it's 1332, and House of Representatives, it's 2941. I've been told that it has a good bit of bipartisan support. We've been waiting to get a Speaker of the House, which we now have. So we're keeping an eye on that. But the reason this is important is that up until now, direct service professionals have not had what's called the Standard Occupational Classification, or SOC code, which is given by the Department of Labor, which essentially means that it's really not recognized as a profession. So any of you that have worked, in special education know that there is a high demand for individuals with the DSP. So I just wanted to share with you that this is a bill that's being considered right now. It's looking pretty good. for this to be approved. If it does, the great thing about it, the implication for all of us is that it is then considered an in-demand occupation, because it truly is in demand in Ohio. The last part is my comment, and that's why I put aspirational, that I think it would be really, really cool if it actually happens and it is an in-demand occupation, that it somehow could find its way to the innovative workforce. Oh, help me out, guys. I'm drawing a blank now. I'm the
incentive program, innovative workforce incentive program.
Thank you. I use it all the time. But so that, just sharing, keep an eye out for that. That this is something that's making its way through Congress right now. Very excited about that. The other part of it too is that the Ohio Association of Direct Service Professionals does provide training and works with schools and career tech centers on providing training for students to receive their certificate of initial proficiency, which is a 4-point credential, and then certificate of advanced proficiency, which is a 6-point credential. I've also been told that that organization has requested through the industry recognized credential approval process that the point value for those credentials be higher than what they are now. So keep an eye out for this. This could be a really great opportunity if this happens to maybe offer some good programming in schools, in career tech centers, training our students to become direct service professionals. And like I said, if it were, and again, aspirational to be added to that IWIP list, then there would be funding that would follow it. So stay tuned on that. So moving on, Lisa Height, promising practice.
Okay, so I am sharing with you just an activity or protocols that I have used and districts have found helpful when looking at their serving students with disabilities in career technical education in that self-review, particularly around the area of recruitment. So one of the questions in that tool is, what is your process to familiarize potential students for the various career tech pathways and programs, as well as the individual program requirements? So I start out, if you want to go to the next slide, by asking the team, and I'm going to say that the team I am working with at Washington Local, who is part of that Each Child on Track for cohort 2, they have a fantastic team: career tech director, special ed director, guidance counselor, career tech teacher, general ed teacher. It's just a very nice, diverse group, which I think is important, because then you're getting everyone's perspectives and what they're seeing happen, because you as career tech may think one thing and that people know it because of this, but what you find out is when you sit down with these other people, they might not even know that you've been doing this activity. So the first activity that I do with them is to have them think of what recruitment activities do they have, what events are happening where they're able to spread their career tech message to get information out about career tech in their area. And I give them 10 minutes, one idea per Post-it note. So we don't have time to do this whole activity together, but just for a second, think about what are 1 or 2 of the recruitment activities that your career tech does, and go ahead and put that in the chat. So just looking for a couple of recruitment activities in the chat, and we'll see what kind of things might be put onto our Post-it notes if we were doing this activity. Sophomore showcase. We've got a tech or treat. That's interesting, right? Welcome Wednesdays. Again, some sophomore stuff. Okay, so, and that's what we realize is there's a lot happening at the high school level. So once we have, for step 2 now, once we have everybody's ideas, right? So you've got all these Post-it notes. We're going to share those Post-it notes with everybody who's in the team. And so we'd put them all out on chart paper, and we would start to remove any that are duplicates. So you could make sure that one of that stays, or if you have duplicates, you could pile all those on top of each other so that we just start to see what are our activities that we know are happening to promote career tech in our area, in our service area. And go to the next slide. And then we talk about, you would have to do some pre-work here. We know that there are certain activities that you do, like 10th grade tours, sophomore visits, 8th grade tours. So what has been the impact of those? So when we ask our student body, was there one event or one reason that made you decide to pick the program that you applied for? I mean, you can see in that bottom graph there to the bottom right, sophomore tours do have an impact. You know, there's many reasons why kids choose a program, but we know that our intro courses make an impact on decision. Our 10th grade tours make an impact on decision. But then you also see that bottom part there. I've always wanted to be in this trade. A family member or a friend has talked to me about it. And so that really helps us to think, okay, so that high school, those recruitment activities are important, but we also see this family member and friend. So that data right there says, are our recruitment activities getting the right information to our parents? If kids are relying or saying parents have an influence on helping them make that decision, the question is, are our parents well informed? So we're going to set that question aside for the next slide. So step 3 is to take those Post-it notes and sort them. And so we look at categories of who we might want to be getting career tech information to. You know, we want our students to be informed consumers. And so are they getting the right information? Are the people who are helping them make decisions getting accurate information about career tech? And so we sort those activities that we know that we do into these groups. And these are groups that we have typically used: teachers, administrators and guidance, community and local businesses, parents, elementary students, middle school students, high school students. And this school that I worked with, they wanted to also look at alumni. So if you think about those groups, then we put them, right, to make bar charts, right? Who is gaining career tech information from our recruitment activities? And we start to place these Post-its under who the target audience is. And then you can see in this data, it's pretty obvious that they have been missing getting right information to some pretty important people. And when we look at our community, they think they're getting a ton of information to their community, but then they started to ask, and this is the beauty of the CTE self-review, where we're doing all these community activities, but are we just saying, hey, we're here, career tech exists, or are we giving information about what this career tech is like? And they realize that they've got lots of, hey, we're here's, but not giving information to help make informed decisions. So they're going to change some practices with what they do with their community. But they also looked at, if parents have such a major influence based on the other data they collected, we aren't doing a lot to make sure that we're getting accurate information to our parents. They also know, especially for students with disabilities, their teachers, their intervention specialists, they haven't done a lot to make sure that those adult influencers are able to talk the right stuff about career tech education specific to each program. So then once you have, go ahead and change the slide. Once you have created this visual, these bar graphs, you're able to ask some more questions, right? So do your major recruitment activities align to the opening of your application window? Does your acceptance window allow adequate time for transition processing to begin, right? So when you're doing these activities, are you getting them out? Are they happening at the right time? And which group is missing the message of career tech education offerings that are available to your students? And which group needs additional points of contact? And so in the example that we had just looked at, the school that I was working with, they were able to identify that they need to have more points of contact, more kind of recruitment activities that involve parents, and also they need to educate their staff. Next slide. So once we decide those identified groups that need additional information, we move to a new protocol that helps to give, first of all, it helps to make sure that everyone has a voice in speaking their ideas and that we have a large list to choose from. And so the first step for this process is that we individually brainstorm ideas on how we could get information to that group. Then we share out in a round robin style and we record those ideas. Then we're going to clean that list because there may be duplicates or some that are connected. And then we vote, right? So when we think about that we need to get more information to our staff, to our teachers, our administrators, our guidance counselors, we're going to list out for 10 minutes individually ideas on ways that we could make that happen. And then each person, one by one, shares out an idea until they have totally crossed off every idea on their list. Then we're left with a master list and we vote. Next slide. So I like to give them 10 minutes, like I said, to do that brainstorming activity. Next step. And then when you are gathering those suggestions, you do one person at a time. Just to keep it going, if someone shares your idea, you cross it off until all ideas have been shared and everyone has crossed off every item on their list. Next step. So then to vote. So we're left with this big master list of ideas on what we could do differently to support Career Tech education, to promote that recruitment process, to get information out so that students and parents can make informed decisions. And so you need 5 index cards to do this activity. Because of this master list, they will choose each person their top 5 ideas. So we start with these 5 index cards. Next slide. And so of those 5 index cards, they're going to write one idea from the master list on an index card. So each index card will have one idea. And of those 5 cards in front of them, they would choose the one that is the most important in their mind, the one that would get the best information. So when we're thinking about getting information to staff, whatever of those 5 ideas they have in front of them would be the best idea of ways to make sure that staff have the knowledge to be able to share with students. Then they would give that a 5. 5 gets the most points, the highest idea, the best idea. We're going to give 5 points on that card, and they turn the card over. Next slide. So then of the 4 you have left, you choose of the 4 in front of you, the one that, yeah, I like it, but of these here, my least favorite of my top 5, I'm going to give that one a 1. So you give that card a 1. So now you've chosen a 5, you've chosen a 1, and both of those cards are flipped over. Next slide. You have 3 cards left in front of you, 3 ideas left in front of you. And of the 3, you would decide which one is the most important. That one gets a 4. Put that on the card and you turn it over. Now you've got 2 cards left. So of those 2, which one is more important? That one gets 3 points, and whichever card you have left is 2 points. So you've got a nice protocol to help each person prioritize their ideas. And every person has ideas that they have ranked. Next slide. And then we ask each person to give us their points. So we had our master list, and we would go to the first person and say, you know, what's your 5, what's your 4, what's your 3, what's your 2, what's your 1, and you place that into your master list so that you can add up those total points. And what we found really interesting, the school that did this activity, looking for ways to increase the knowledge of staff, to use that as a recruitment tool, making sure that their staff was able to talk in an educated manner about Career Tech education. We found it interesting that the people in the team, they were choosing the same topics for the most part. They weren't necessarily giving it the same score, but a lot of them were choosing the same ones. And so now you've been able to use a protocol that can help you prioritize the ideas, get the opinions of everyone on the team to help you select what you could do differently. And so this school, what they've chosen based on this is that they're definitely going to, you can see their 26 points was their highest idea. And many of their team members gave that their highest point. So they're going to make sure as they move forward with PD days in the future that they are going to have ongoing digestible information for all of their staff and that they are at required sessions. Next one. So if you think about this activity and your recruitment efforts, how do you know that your current recruitment activities are effective? Have you surveyed your students to find that out? Who should be on your team when reviewing the recruitment activities to allow for different insights to be shared? As I said, that well-populated team, making sure that you have someone from guidance, someone from special education, someone from career tech, someone from academics. If you have partner schools, maybe a couple of partner school people, really have a well-rounded team. So who are your stakeholders, and do your current recruitment activities reach these people? Do your current recruitment practices provide specific program information to help students and parents make informed decisions? With the example that I shared before, that the school saw that there were a ton of activities where career tech was represented, so that we know career tech exists, but they weren't providing that community at those events with quality information to help build the knowledge around the programs. So I hope you found that information helpful. Just as a reminder that we, the CTPD consultants, are happy to assist you with this activity. If you are participating with the CTE self-review, the Serving Students with Disabilities in Career Tech Education self-review tool, this is an activity that we could use to help you kind of refine what it is you're doing and plan to move forward so that we're allowing all voices from your team to be heard.
Great, and I just put in the chat there the feedback. Please take some time. Let us know how we're doing. We want to be good stewards of your time. We know you folks are busy. We want to make these sessions valuable for you. So please, if you have some feedback on ways that we can improve this, we are more than pleased to do that. So I'm just kind of a shameless plug. We love being out in career tech centers, helping you folks, supporting students. So, we're just trying to continue to make some connections. So our self-review tool is, very much targeted at serving students with disabilities in the career tech centers. We're looking at equitable access and those 4 big buckets that are listed in regards to recruitment, selection and placement, provisions of special ed services, and then how do you continually improve to meet the needs of students and teachers in some of these areas as well. I know that the up and coming season is the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment. And when I look at that document too, there is definitely, with Perkins 5, there's definitely a vein of equitable access for students into career tech programming. And that talks about, the Comprehensive Local Needs. Your stakeholder groups are going to be looking at evaluation of student performance, the scope, size, and quality of your programs. Are you meeting the labor market needs of your area? Is everything aligned? Are we increasing the connection of those circles that Melissa talked about earlier? Also then too is, how are we making sure that we're progressing as far as providing, quality career technical programming and programs of studies that meets the needs of our future communities as well. And then too is, how do we continually make sure that we're improving both the equity and the access of students with disabilities into career tech programming. Just a spoiler alert, next session we'll show you how all these Perkins 5 are the big umbrella and also support these. So we do appreciate that feedback. Let us know. We look forward to seeing you in 2024. The ideas board is open. You know, we'd love you to put some comments for the good of the others, for some networking. How are you currently using the self-review and potentially using that to help prepare for the comprehensive local needs assessment as far as improving some outcomes for students with disabilities, and also to keeping an eye on some of those other subgroups that are in your districts? All right, back to the MC.
All right, thank you, Lisa and Jody. So we just want to, in the last couple minutes that we have here, give you some upcoming events. There is the Career Planning for Graduation and Beyond series. Melissa, you want to just quickly give, since Melissa's our fearless leader on this project, give us a breakdown of what's going on?
Sure. In January, February, April, and May, we're going to do some virtual sessions. In the past, we've looked at industry recognized credentials across the board. This year, we're going to, or next year, we're going to look at industry recognized credentials by career field. So soon you'll have some information and you can pick the date that most represents something that you want to learn about. There'll be 3 industry credentials highlighted for each career field. And all the pertinent information that goes along with it. And those sessions will be recorded. So if there are 2 career fields you want to check out and they're on the same day, don't worry, we'll record those. And then in April, we're going to have a promising practices share. So practices from around the state leading into graduation. So all the career planning that can take place, middle school programming, how you're using the career awareness dollars. Are you implementing career industry recognized credentials or senior only credentials or summer camps, those kinds of things? We're going to share practices that we've seen around the state to give you guys some more ideas about some things you could do in your location. And then in May, Tech Prep's going to offer a how-to session about getting started with industry recognized credentials. To get funding for industry recognized credentials, you have to have a CTE 26 in, and those that window is open now, but it will also open again in the summer just for credentials. So if that's something you're interested in, just stay tuned. We'll have some information out shortly about getting registered and saving those dates on your calendar.
Thank you, Melissa. Thanks for leading that effort. So just a reminder that we do have 2 more of our statewide meetings. The next one will be in February. You can see February 28th, and then our 4th one will be April 17th. So again, we just want to thank you all for being here today. We know this was a lot of information that we packed in the 2 hours, and just to reinforce what I think you've heard the other consultants say, we really are here for you. You do not hesitate to reach out to us if we can be of assistance in any of this work that we're doing together, and in particular, making sure that we're equitably serving our students with disabilities in career tech education. So we have our evaluation QR there. I can't see the chat, but I'm betting Jody probably put the ULR, or somebody did, in the chat as well for our evaluation. And we will send out this recording as well, which I think I will now stop the recording.